Morning, everyone, and welcome to our City and Guilds Qualifications Reforms webinar. We are presenting this webinar from home, so please excuse any unwanted background noise and any potential delay in the slides. Today's hosts will be myself, Salim Bezram, Lead Industry Manager for Building Services Engineering, along with my two colleagues, David Pye, Lead Technical Advisor for Building Services Engineering, and Rob Mallender, Technical Advisor for BSE as well. Please see the control panel on the side of the screen. You will see a question tab where you can type your questions, a chat tab which we use for useful links, and a handout section which you will find a copy of the presentation which you can then download. There will be a survey which follows this webinar, so please look out for the links and take a few moments to share your feedback. There's much to get through, so let's make a start and look at today's agenda. Okay, so we're going to be looking through some of the reforms, particularly around level 3 first, because that's the direction of the travel that the government are implementing. We'll then look at the level 2 reforms as well, and obviously take on any questions towards the end of the presentation. So this slide just gives you a little bit of a kind of high-level overview of the cycles and the sectors that are going to be impacted by the reforms. So from September 2024 next year, there will be only the T level for this particular wave that will be funded for 16 to 19-year-olds. The following year is when we will have a level 3 OTQ for our electrotechnical and our plumbing qualification. And then you can see on September 20, you can see in 2026, 2027, 2028, the following sectors that are going to be impacted by the reforms. And we'll talk about some of the qualifications, particularly in 2025 and beyond, that will impact the BSE portfolio. David, over to you.
Thank you very much, Salim. I'll take you through the next few slides and give you a bit of context to these reforms. So the aim of the reforms following the Post-16 Education Act 2022 is to simplify the system that supports progression into positive outcomes, so typically an apprenticeship and into the industry. That's formed from the T levels, which will be the primary offer for 16 to 18 classroom-based learning. It puts employers and the standards at the heart of the design, so you'll see a lot of the content come directly from the standards and the apprenticeships. The new terminology we'll use on these type of qualifications will be occupational entry qualifications, and they'll be available for us from around 2025, which Rob will take us through in following slides. There will be removal of funding from next year for the T levels and then the year after for 19 plus, but again, we'll go in more detail in a little bit. And there's a link there. If you want to learn more around the reforms and the details and the context, there's a link to further information and a webinar recording. But that's just a quick overview to set some context. So now into a little bit more detail on the occupational entry qualifications. The level 3, as it says there in the first bullet, is aligned and mapped to the standard. Now, I'm sure you're all thinking about the assessment approaches. Well, the exam is externally set and externally marked. So like our Evolves work at the moment, and these will be on demand. The practical, again, copies what we use on many of our BRQ and apprenticeship qualifications already. It's externally set, but internally marked, and then it will be externally verified by an EQA, just as we have now. So it's a non-grading and it supports flexible delivery models for 19 plus. There's a range of the GLH there, but this is largely dependent on the content that we bring across from the standard. And again, we'll show you a little bit more in a moment. The level 2, pretty much the same. So the same approaches, the same thought process and approaches to the assessment. And if you look at the guide for the GLH, it's a little bit shorter, but again, in BSE and our qualifications, that will be driven by the content. Next slide. So what's the offer going to look like from September 2024? So that's the next academic year. Well, for 16 to 19-year-olds, that will be the T level. So it's a technical qualification in BSE for construction, the 8710. So this will be the primary offer for 16 to 19 at level 3 from September 24. The current 8202 level 3 is on the overlap list from DFE, and this will have funding removed for 16 to 19. There's a link there to that overlap list. So as we move on to the next slide, how will it look for 19 plus? So this will be the 2 new qualifications. Currently, we have the level 3 6036 in plumbing and the level 3 2366 in electrical. These have been developed and we're waiting to hear feedback on the development from IFATE and Ofqual, which we should receive around April 2024. In the summer of 24, the DFE will publish the funding decisions, and in September 25 will be the first year for first teaching on these qualifications. The likelihood is the 8202 will also be on the overlap list for 19 plus and therefore lose funding. There will be a level 2 prerequisite, and it does support progression onto the relevant industry apprenticeship standard. So how do they look? Well, there are probably no surprises really. There's a plumbing 6036 driven directly from the apprenticeship standard. So you can see the content, and you can see the unit titles, hot, cold, central heating, what you typically expect to see. And it has a guided learn hours of 408, and you can see them broken down in each unit. And just a basic overview of assessment and the grading being pass and fail. So if we look now at the equivalent for electrical, again, it's probably no surprises really in the unit titles. And although they're written unitized, there are some merged assessments. The assessment approach, although evolve and assignment workshop based on demand, there will be some merging of those. So it wouldn't be assessed necessarily unit for unit, but broken down into some merged units. But that's just to give you an overview for now. As I said, we're waiting for feedback on these, so we'll have more detailed information regarding the approach and if there's any changes to this once we get our own feedback from Ofqual and IFATE, and we can do some further updates then. But for now, that's a little bit of background, and to take you through a bit more detail, I will hand you over to my colleague, Robert Malader. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, David. So when we were developing the level 3 programs, and we'll just leave the electrical slide on there for a second, and it's consistent across plumbing as well. What we've basically done is took the level 3 technical content from the apprenticeship standard, left the level 2 material there, if you like, and we've extracted the level 3 material from the standard to develop the units you can see on screen. And consistently, that's across plumbing as well. So these are very close to the apprenticeship standard content. We've almost removed the level 3 standard content, created this technical occupational entry in electrical and plumbing, and then we've left the level 2 material in situ, and that will eventually develop the level 2 offer, which I'm going to go into now. So we've not sort of ripped things up, started again, as David said. We've used the standard content, so the apprenticeship content, and we have to do that, otherwise they won't be eligible for funding. We have to show progression into employment from these qualifications. Just remembering this is for adults, the level 3 offer, and we're now going to look at what the level 2 offer looks like and some background of the reforms at level 2. So again, these are aimed to run alongside apprenticeships, GCSEs, etc. There's 3 main groups of quals which will receive public funding. So to receive public funding, they've got to support progression either to technical study at level 3, so almost, the qualification we've just been looking at for adults, or T level. So when the level 2's developed, and this is a way off yet, when we look at a future slide, we're going to be looking, this is going to be first teaching 2026. So this is a year behind. We're just trying to give you the contents around what we're developing and how things will progress. So they've got to progress to basically the adult qualification we've just been looking at, or a T level when we develop the level 2. They've got to support entry to employment. So then obviously from the level 3, progression will be into employment, the apprenticeship, into a T level, or into an adult qualification. We're also developing a level 2 foundation qualification eventually. Again, this is going to be first teaching 2026. And this is to support the foundation into T level. So this is going to be between 120 and 150 GLH, based on the National Technical Outcomes, the NTOs. Grading standards, etc., is set by Ofqual. And to explain this simply, what this is a level 2 progression qualification to support entry and development into the core for T level. So there is light touch occupational specialism content, but the main focus of this content when we develop the T level foundation qual is the core content of T level. So potentially what the level 2 offer might look like moving forward, you might use this core content, level 2 if you like, bolt on a technical qualification, build that up as a program of study, and then that might progress into the T level offer. But that's a little vague at the moment. As we can see from this slide, technical occupational entry qualifications for 19 plus are also going to be developed. So these will eventually replace 2365, 8202 for 19 plus learners. We'll have to go through a similar submission process as David went through on the previous slides for the level 3 19 plus provision, and first teaching will be 2026. So we appreciate this is a way off, and we're going to look at what the curriculum looks like in future slides. But we want to try and give you as much heads up as possible and support centres as much as possible, because there is quite a dramatic change in development and delivery over the coming years. Before we progress to the next slide, which is going to look at a little bit more into the reform qualifications, we're just going to run a quick couple of polls. If you could just give those the attention on screen, and then we'll move on to some of the things we're going to be using to support centres moving forward. David, if you'd like to run the first poll.
Yeah, thanks. That should be on screen now. So are you planning to run T levels in 2024? So there's a few more just finishing off now. So I'll now close that poll. I should be able to show the results. So you should see on screen now 71% of centres who are on today are planning on running T levels next year. So it's quite a healthy number, really, almost 3/4. So just one more quick poll before we move on. The same question, a few more options of answers, but around the 19 plus new qualifications. So lots of votes coming in. I'll just give it another moment just to get the last few votes. Okay, so we've got yes, probably yes, no, and probably not. So just about to close. And again, I'll show the results. So 19% is a definite yes, and 72% is probably, and only 8% not going to run them. So yeah, we're healthy numbers there. So the vast majority are probably going to run these qualifications. So that's great intelligence and feedback for ourselves. Thank you very much for that, and hopefully it's of interest to yourselves as well. But I'll now pass you back to Rob to take you through the following slides.
Thanks a lot, David. So we're going to look at how we're going to be supporting you as providers with building services planning over the next few years, really, as we're going to see from these next slides. This is going to be from 2024 to 2027. So we've got a dedicated website page to the post-16 education. There's a little snip there on the right-hand side of the screen. We're going to be doing the regular things, you know, welcome pack, events, webinars like today, learner and parent flyers to explain all the changes, and we're going to be providing a lot of support from a technical advisor point of view to explain these qualifications in a lot more detail. Obviously, the first wave is already up and running in T levels, and they will be the only funded offer 16 to 19 from 2024. When we get approval for the adult qualifications, which are going to be running in 2025, obviously we'll be running webinars and a lot more support around the actual content, the assessment structure, what the assessment looks like, and we'll be taking you along the journey moving forward. So what we've got going live early November is something we've called Sector on a Page. So this is going to be on that website. It's going to be a 4-year overview of technical qualifications to try and show centres what's going to be funded, what the natural progression routes might be, and what we're going to be submitting as part of the reforms, if you like, from 2024 to 2027. So that's due to go live anytime early November. What we've tried to do, though, on this next slide is give you an overview and simplify this. I have to put the caveat on this. Things can always be subject to change. We could see, obviously, changes in government, incentives, etc. But let's give you an idea of what we're looking at moving forward. So with two bands on this, we're looking at 16 to 19 at the top of the slide and 19 plus at the bottom. And then we've got level 1, level 2, and level 3 from 2024 right up to 2027. So for 16 to 19, from 2024, the only change you're going to see, and these are the changes are the boxes in the sort of pink colour. Colours aren't my strong point. I'll call it pink. The level 3 BSE and T level we've been told is going to be the only change. So as we've said, from 2024, 16 to 19, if you want to run level 3, T level will be the only funded offer. So then let's look at adults for 2024, and as we can see, no change as things are in 2023. So we expect, with the caveat obviously, we expect level 1, level 2 and level 3 to be funded for adults as it was this academic year. We're going to move on to 2025 for 16 to 19, and as we can see there, the qualifications we've just been looking at, the content, the BSE T-level qualification will still remain funded and be the only offer for 16 to 19 learners at level 3 in 2025. That will remain consistent. Level 2 and level 1 in 2025 for 16 to 19 will be as is, we're expecting. And then for adults, we're seeing that new level 3 reformed qualification come into play. So the 6036, etc. The new adult plumbing and electrical reformed qualifications will be the only funded offer at 19 plus. So we expect funding to be removed from 8202 and that be on the overlap list in 2025. Looking further ahead to 2026, 16 to 19, we'll be going through the same approval process as we have for the adult quals, but we'll be seeing the new level 2 reformed qualifications come into play. So this will see that progression qualification into T levels, etc., come into play in 2026. And we could see funding removed from the current level 2 products, 2365 and 6035, including 8202. We expect those to be on the overlap list, again with the caveat. And of consistent, that T level, it remains there at the top of the page for level 3. That's going to be the consistent funded offer for 16 to 19. Looking at adults, we will see this level 2 reformed qualification coming for adults then. So this will be a progression route into the level 3 reformed adult qual or apprenticeships. And we'll see that coming into play in 2026 for adults 19 plus. And then obviously the progression will be from that for any adults into the reformed level 3 qualification. And then eventually in 2027, we'll be reforming the level 1 qualifications. They will progress into the 2026 level 2 and then into T level or apprenticeships. And then for adults, again, we'll be reforming the level 1 quals, which will be funded in that arena. And the other qualifications, which we'll know in that arena, 7202, etc., will then probably be on the overlap list and will be replaced. Into progression, they'll progress into the level 2 reformed qualifications and the level 3 reformed qualifications. So as you can see, that's a pretty consistent sliding scale from T levels in 2024 to adult qual reforms 2025, level 2 reforms 2026, level 1 reforms 2027. So that's the detail, what's going to be on that sector in a page document, which we looked at on a previous slide. But we thought it can be quite a complex document to look at that in some arenas. There's a lot of asterisks on there saying plumbing will probably, funding will probably be removed, etc. So we've tried to put that into context on a slide there to explain that in a little bit more simpler format. So what will BSE funded qualifications look like moving forward? So again, this is another elaboration of that previous slide. In 2026 onwards, this is what the offer will look like. You have the new level 2 reforms there. We've left level 1 off of this because it's quite a way away. To get those level 2 reforms funded, we will have to ensure they progress seamlessly into either T levels, which will be the foundation qual, or the adult alternative technical qualifications, the occupational entry quals, which will come in from 2025, obviously T levels already there. Then what we'll see there is the level 2 reformed quals can also link seamlessly into the apprenticeship standards, which were revised 2023. Obviously electrical, we've got plumbing on the horizon, March next year potentially. And all this work is to ensure everything progresses to skilled employment. So the reason and the purpose for this slide, we've got a lot of feedback to say, why haven't the reforms started at level 1 and progressed through to level 3 and apprenticeships, etc. Basically, the government have worked backwards. They've revised the apprenticeship standard, and they've ensured any level 3 offer, whether it be adult or T levels, progresses into that apprenticeship standard. And then they've done the same then at level 2. To get any level 2 offer funded, we've got to make sure it progresses either into a level 3 or a standard. So there's a big focus on this being driven into skilled employment. No longer will qualifications get funded unless they've got this seamless progression route, unless it's a CPD qualification. Hope that simplified the things a little bit for you. What I'm going to do now is just hand over back to David for a final roundup.
Thanks very much, Rob. Sorry, just trying to answer some questions as you hand it back over. So, yeah, just a final roundup, really. So, customer support, there's a lot of support available. I'm sure you've got colleagues that you work with from a range of sectors. So please make them aware of the customer support at citygills.com email address. Any general questions on reforms, any specifics around certain sectors, you can always use ourselves for that support, as often you do. But the good thing about the customer support email address is the fact that all the requests are logged officially, and it helps us then gauge if there's a specific question that keeps coming in. We realise then that maybe we've got to do extra communication around that. So it's certainly a good one to make a note of. There's a few extra bullet points there about how can I stay informed or get more involved. Well, of course, with all our new qualifications, we do need letters of support and letters of demand. So if you wish to run these courses, often we need to provide information as part of our own applications that there's a demand from the centres and the demand from learners. So we need to demonstrate that through letters. So we may be asking you in future, or if you're willing to get involved, please let us know, and we can include you on the list to provide letters of demand. And if you're working closely with employers who want these types of qualifications, if they like to be engaged and involved, we're more than willing to work with them and to listen to them. So please help us out by sharing some of their details or sharing our details with them. And again, we'll probably be asking for letters of support if they feel these are beneficial qualifications. If anyone wants to get involved in any writing or marking or working with us as associates, we've put the link at the bottom of this slide, which will take you to a page which will bring up the variety of different associate roles. And please do keep a lookout for those and make an application if you're interested. So if we move on to the next slide, please. So this is ourselves. So just so you know who you've been listening to and to provide you with our contact details, and just to, again, share our thoughts around support. So please get in touch with us. Any general support, we'll look to do some more webinars and networks as there's demand and a need for those as new information and new qualifications come out. So please just keep in touch with us and keep us updated with your needs, and then we can build our support around what you require. So we'll probably got some more questions coming in, so please have a think about your questions. Please start typing away, but we can share just one final poll just before we start answering the questions, because we want to gauge how well informed centres and providers are at this moment in time. So did you know these reforms were coming? Did you know when and where and what the detail was? Or did you not really know too much about them, quite vague, or maybe not heard at all? So it just helps us to know how much you knew before this webinar or whether it was completely new. So I've just launched that. So were you aware of the reforms prior to this webinar? Yes, vaguely, hardly, or not at all? Again, if you can just give us some of your responses to that, it just helps us gauge where everyone is. That again helps us with our development of our support. So is it going to be more networks, face-to-face, more webinars, sharing of emails as information comes available? You know, there will be a short survey after this, just a couple of 2 questions, I think, maybe 3, and it'd be great to hear from you about what type of support you'd be looking for in the future, what works well, what doesn't, and anything that we've done before that you found useful. So I'll just give you a final few seconds to vote on that poll. Okay, it seems to have settled down now, so I can share those results. So yeah, about 40% were aware. That's really good. 40% vaguely, 15% hardly, and 5% not at all. So that's quite promising, really. Overall, a lot of centres and providers are have an awareness of the reforms. So that's excellent, and hopefully now you know a little bit more, and as we get to hear our feedback and share more details with you, it won't be as much of a shock. You've got an idea of what's coming down the track. So thank you very much for that. So
Thanks,
now
David.
we can open up the questions. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, so we've had a few questions around, I think we've run through this quite quickly. So what I'm going to do is just try and summarize this, what might answer some of the questions which have been typed in. So we'll run through this slide quickly, and then I'm going to go back to the previous one as well. So this slide's got dates on. What summarizes this is the progression through to skilled employment the questions around what will be funded probably is summarised best by this slide. So when you get this slideshow through, you can download these slides now from the handout section in the webinar, or you will get a recording of this after the session along with the CPD certificate, as we said earlier. But the ones on this slide in pink will be what's changing and what will be funded in that academic year. So we've had questions around what will happen for 16 to 19. Let's look at the first column. So from a reforms point of view, the major change for September 2024 is for 16 to 19 learners, and the only level 3 funded offer will be T-levels from September 24. Level 2 and level 1, as you can see, they're still grey. They remain the same. For adults, 19 plus, as you can see, no pink boxes, no changes. So 8202 will still remain funded for adults at level 3. Then when we move to the next column, 2025, again, 16 to 19 is the only change to what we know now in 2023. And similar to 2024, T-level will be the only 16 to 19 offer. So if you're delivering a level 3 full-time offer at the moment to 16 to 19 learners from 2024, you need to have applied to DFE to deliver T-levels, which is an application process, and you need to have gone through the approval process with City and Guilds, who've won the bid to deliver T-levels along with EAL as a partner, and you need to get that approval in time for September 2024, otherwise you're not going to have a funded offer at level 3 for 16 to 19. That's probably the key message from me at the moment. If you've got 16 to 19 learners, the only funded offer from 24 will be T-level. Then we move into the next column, 25. The only funded offer for adults, then there's the major change, will be the 19 plus reformed quals we've gone through today. So 8202 is likely to lose its funding. That's the two major changes over the next 2 years. 16 to 19 wise, level 3 funding is removed for 8202 from September 24, and 25 will see the adult funding removed from 8202. So that's 2 years ahead. They're the two major changes you've probably got to worry about now. 16 to 19 from 24, it's got to be T-level. 19 plus from 25, you've got to move over to the adult reformed quals. Let's not worry too much about the other two columns, but then we've got the level 2 reforms coming in 26 and the level 1 reforms coming in 27. We might see major changes before then. And I know centres, worked in centres previously, etc. That's a long time away. So the two key things to take away probably from today is the top box, 16 to 19, September 24, it's got to be a T-level. And then from September 25, you've got to move over to the level 3 reformed quals. Hopefully that clarifies what we've been looking at and answers some of the questions which we've had typed in.
Just to add, Rob, these are all funded. These are all for funded provision as well.
Good point. Yeah.
So yeah, all of what everybody sees on this particular slide, and obviously all the reforms are around funded provision.
That's a really good point, Salim. So, you know, if centres are delivering, private training providers, etc., might be using 2365, for example, 6035, for example. If there's a demand, potentially they will remain, and they will remain as full cost delivery. We're talking today about funding and the funded offer.
Worth noting, if people are planning on moving to the T-levels in 24 as the funded provision, you need to make an approval process. So what I've done is I've just, in response to one of the questions, just dropped in a link to the approval process. It will talk you through that. It opens up I think it's in February, Rob, 24, the next approval process.
Yeah, to apply for that funding, sorry, for approval, you also need to apply to DFE to become an approved T-level provider as well. So there's a bit of background work before you deliver T-level.
Yeah.
We've also got,
sorry.
Go on, sorry, Salim.
No, I was just going to say there was a question. There's a question around the T-level doesn't really map over to the standard and isn't really aligned with electrical installation. Now, I know that there have been a few concerns around that, but it does. I can assure you, it does align to the apprenticeship standard, and that mapping, the detailed mapping, has been done. But also a high-level mapping, an exemption document has been created. So if you go onto the 8710 webpage and under the Sent Documents tab, you'll see the exemption guide there, and it's quite clear that there are quite a few units that learners will be exempt from once they've joined the electrical apprenticeship, albeit they obviously still need to do the remaining units as well as the on-site portfolio, and then obviously onto their endpoint assessment. But it does align. So but please have a look at it in a little bit more detail to get a little bit more understanding.
Yeah, that's a good point, Salim. I think, yeah, to quash those concerns, I think the query was around electrical. Basically, quick overview, if they've done a level 3 T-level and they've completed it in its entirety, they have to do the apprenticeship inspection and test knowledge test, the regs unit, their portfolio, and endpoint assessment. So that's what's left if they've done a T-level. From a plumbing point of view, they're exempt from more or less phase 1 and 2 of the apprenticeship standard as it currently stands. Obviously, that's going to be changing soon. So these are constantly moving now. We're seeing changes to standards, etc. But in its current format, those exemption documents are on the website, as Salim said, and there's a link in the question response. We are obviously just coming into the world of a new electrical standard, so we're just reviewing that mapping and that exemption document at the moment. So if you're thinking of delivering September 24, just keep close to that. And any providers who are wanting to join the webinars, etc., what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a link in to the T-level events and webinars page in the questions as well. That will then allow everybody to sign up to the relevant webinars to get the insight into what delivery of T-levels looks like.
And the point Rob made earlier is a really good point, that this is a landscape now, today, as we speak. It could change. You know, they could review things, they could receive feedback, they could alter funding, extend funding. We don't know. We can only tell you what is known at this moment in time. And as apprenticeship standards are updated, it may change things again slightly, but we'll continually monitor that and keep you as updated as we possibly can.
Sorry, I forgot I was presenting. I can't drop that link in. I'm not sure if one of colleagues could just go, if you just hover over T-levels on the City and Guilds homepage, there's a drop-down box under there, events and webinars. If somebody could drop that link in.
Yeah.
Thanks, David. So yeah, major change afoot over the next sort of 3 to 4 years. The first change we've got to deal with now, September 24. So if you want that funded provision 16 to 19, any more information on the approval process, etc. We'll also drop in, if we could, David, the email address for Technicals Quality, or Salim.
Yeah, so, I'll do that.
Thanks. So Technicals Quality deal with the approvals process. So if you're thinking you're gonna have to move to T-levels for September 24, you need to get the ball rolling on that. You need more information on what the approval looks like. If you contact Technicals Quality, they deal with all that side of things and they'll support you through that process. We've also got business development managers what can assist you in the approvals process. And what that basically is a little different to, just while David's dropping something in the chat, obviously it could be quite timely for some centres. What you'll basically do is apply for approval and you get allocated a TQA, a T-level quality assurer. That's not an EQA, it's a person who will support you through that approval process. Make sure you've got everything you need to deliver the insight into the assessment process, the relevant points of contact you need within the business to deliver the contract successfully. So it's not sort of an approval visit as you would normally know. It is to make sure you've got the resources and the facilities to deliver. But the main purpose of that TQA is to support that centre through to effective delivery. So the quicker you can get the ball rolling on that approval process and get things starting to be completed, it's a little bit more onerous than the normal approval process because we've had other requirements put in place by IFATE. So if you're thinking of getting things moving on that, contact Technicals Quality and we can start supporting you along the journey.
Just another reminder that this presentation is in the handouts section. So if you go to the column that pops up when you're watching GoToWebinar and go to the handouts section, you can download a copy of this presentation.
I think we've more or less answered most questions which are in the tab. We've had a query around refrigeration, air conditioning, and we'll see reformed qualifications for that. They're not in the current plans for these reforms. Obviously, we're seeing a new standard which is being revised at the moment and going to be live soon. When we know what that looks like, we'll be looking at what the offer needs to look like moving forward into those standards and reforms for refrigeration, air conditioning qualifications. I'll just have a quick look, see if we've not answered anything else. If you just bear with any further questions, feel free to type them in.
Just a question around 2365 level 2. Is it still part of the funding for 2025? Yep, because 236502 is a level 2 qualification, and for level 2, that particular product will be defunded come September 2026. So we'll have a new product in place for September 2026.
Yeah, so I'll leave the slide still on screen there. Anything in grey is as it is this year, basically. So only the pink ones we could potentially see a change with the caveat things might change with direction from government. But the grey picture on the slide there is the things which are as of this year. So only the pink ones on the slide are potentially going to change in the relevant column for the relevant academic year. This will all be in that sector on a page document, which is going live early November. On there will be all the QAN numbers, so you can keep checking on the relevant funding websites, etc. So it should be another useful resource, which is going to go live and get publicised from our marketing teams, etc. once they've all been approved, finalised and formatted as required. This is a sort of a summary of that document.
So someone's asking where the handout section is. So if you look at your column where you access your questions, you should see another little tab beneath that saying handouts. So let us know if you can find it. Hopefully everyone can. So you've normally got a few little tabs, and they'll say polls and dashboard, audio, chat and handouts. Sometimes if it doesn't show, you've got to go into the file or options at the top because you haven't got it on your drop down menu, and maybe you've got to add it. That's happened to me in the past. So maybe try and have a look there. So if people can find the handouts, it'd be great. Could you just drop it in the chat or in the questions just to let us know? If there's just the odd one who can't find it, maybe drop us an email after today and we can make sure you get a copy.
Yeah, no problem. You'll get the recording from this anyway. Our contact details are on one of the last slides. As David says, drop us a direct email and we'll more than happy send you a PDF copy through. We try and just cut down on the follow-up process because of GDPR, etc. We try and do it all through GoToWebinar and put it in the handouts section there. But if somebody wants to make contact, we're more than happy to distribute that after the session. If you want to maybe pass that on to internal teams, etc. Or you will get the recording to play this to internal teams or within your teams after the session as well. That should usually come through in the next few hours along with the CPD certificate.
Would just say, just keep looking out for alerts, look out for the quarterly BSE newsletter that also comes out. If you're not signed up for alerts, please make sure you can go onto our website, go to the preference center and
I'll drop a link now to the email alerts.
Thanks, David. Yeah, because obviously keeping up to date with information is as critical for us as it is for you as well. So if you're not signed up for those alerts, please ensure you are. And then obviously, as the information comes out, we're able to disseminate that to all of our customers.
So I think we've come to the end of most of the questions. Just your final chance to drop any in. But as we said earlier, there's a small survey that follows. We'll appreciate just a few comments on there. If you like these, if you find them helpful, great to add that as well. It just helps us justify further webinars, and we can do that, no problem. And just share your thoughts, any queries at all. If you're struggling to get any of the handouts, drop us an email and just stay in touch, really. So yeah, just to say thank you very much for attending. You know, you got very busy lives, and have a great weekend, and we'll see you very soon. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.